There are many different environmental agencies that work to enact environmental regulations. And you'll see these agencies both on the federal level and on the state level, and sometimes even on the municipal level. So, for example, in Newcastle County, the Newcastle County government enacts a lot of the stormwater management laws that in other parts of the state are enacted by the state itself. So let's talk about these different agencies and what their roles may be in the environment. So we can have the U.S. Department of the Interior, and in the U.S. Department of the Interior, there's the Geological Survey, the Bureau of Land Management, the National Park Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, along with some other agencies that may play small roles in the environment. In the Department of Commerce, we have the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA. And in NOAA, that includes the National Geodetic Survey, the National Weather Service, and the National Marine Fisheries Service. So you might find that kind of crazy that the Department of Commerce actually has a lot of environmental footprint. We also have the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which includes the National Resource Conservation Service and the U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. Department of Defense with the Army Corps of Engineers, the Department of Homeland Security with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and the Coast Guard. And then you might see the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Environmental Protection Agency, state and local agencies, and nonprofits. So let's dive a little bit deeper into these different organizations to talk about what they do. So the U.S. Department of Interior was established in 1849, and its goal is to protect and manage natural resources and our cultural heritage. So it provides scientific information about natural and cultural resources. And it also honors trust responsibilities and other special commitments to Native American, Alaskan Native, and other island communities within the United States. The U.S. Geological Survey provides impartial information about the health of our ecosystems, the natural environment, natural hazards, natural resources, and it also provides information about climate and land use changes. The Bureau of Land Management manages our federal lands. So right now it administers more than 247 million acres of public lands and manages 700 million acres of subsurface minerals. So the Bureau of Land Management you typically won't see in the eastern part of the United States. It's typically more out west. The National Park Service was established in 1916, and it manages our national parks, national monuments, and other historic and natural resources. And so the goal of the national parks is to maintain those environments and also allow people to enjoy them. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was established in 1871. It enforces federal wildlife laws. It protects endangered species. It manages migratory birds, helps to maintain and restore significant fisheries. It conserves wildlife habitats, including wetlands, and helps with outreach to other foreign governments about conservation efforts. And it also manages the Wildlife Sport, Fish, and Restoration Program. There are other Department of the Interior agencies that may also have some work in the environment, and that includes the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Office of Surface Mining, Reclamation, and Enforcement, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, the Bureau of Reclamation, and the Office of Insular Affairs. So you might be surprised to learn that the Department of Commerce has quite a bit to do with the environment, and all of that is through NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. NOAA is a data agency. So NOAA gathers tons of data about the environment that other agencies then use to help make regulations and make environmental decisions. So NOAA includes the National Geodetic Survey. So this provides all information for all positioning activities in the United States. So any surveying is provided through the National Geodetic Survey. The National Weather Service provides marine forecasts and land forecasts, and it monitors and predicts marine wind and wave conditions. You get National Weather Service bulletins and reports and information all the time. And the National Marine Fisheries Service manages, conserves, and protects our marine resources. The U.S. Department of Agriculture includes the National Resources Conservation Service, which we used to know as the Soil Conservation Service. And this provides technical assistance to farmers and landowners. This came about as a part of the Dust Bowl. And then we also have the U.S. Forest Service, which manages more than 193 million acres of natural forest and grasslands. You might be surprised to know that the Department of Defense has a very big footprint in environmental regulation, and that is through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So anything that has anything to do with wetlands or river navigation or anything like that needs to have an Army Corps of Engineer permit. So you might, if you're working on any wetland-related project, you will work with the Army Corps. The Department of Homeland Security deals with FEMA. And so FEMA's goal is to protect against natural disasters. So you might see FEMA work happening with response to hurricanes and tornadoes and things like that. They will also help to make communities more resilient to the impacts of those types of storms. And we also have the Tennessee Valley Authority. So the Tennessee Valley Authority was started after the Great Depression as part of the New Deal. It was created in 1933 because within the region of the Tennessee Valley, that region of the United States was isolated from everywhere else in the United States. And the people living in that region were not enjoying the same standard of living that people in other parts of the country were experiencing. And so the goal of the Tennessee Valley Authority was to help to raise the standard of living for the people living within the Tennessee Valley. And so that included navigation, flood control, electricity, fertilizer manufacturing, and economic development within the region. So in that Tennessee region, the Tennessee Valley Authority has a big footprint in the environmental area. And then we have the Environmental Protection Agency. So the EPA was established in 1970, and its goal is to protect human health and the environment. It helps to develop regulations from those environmental laws, and it implements those congressional environmental laws. And then it brings those regulations down to the state level and oversees the states as they are implementing those regulations. And then we have our state and local agencies. So the state and local agencies are the boots on the ground that make sure that all of these environmental regulations are being enforced. So we are the people that would go out to businesses and industries and make sure that they're following these environmental regulations and they're not contributing to lots of environmental contamination. Now, I want to note that state and local agencies can be significantly more stringent than federal agencies. So federal agencies set that baseline regulation that needs to be followed, but then states and local agencies can be even more stringent on top of those requirements.